Weber Family Reviews, and I'm Jenny, and I'm going to go over the Dominion expansions, and what are my favorites and what I like about them. There are currently 13 Dominion expansions, and they've done a second printing of the base 2, Intrigue and Dominion, the base Dominion game. Now, we actually have the originals of both Intrigue and Dominion, but we did buy the second edition upgrades, so we do have both of those. There are 2 expansions we don't own. We don't own Cornucopia and we don't own Dark Ages. We actually have owned both of them. We got rid of them when we moved like 7 years ago, and I've never felt the need to repurchase them. Kind of to start with why we didn't like them, and you might love them. They're both smaller expansions. Actually, Dark Ages was larger, but Cornucopia was a really small one. Now I think it comes packaged with guilds, which we still own. And it was, to me, very random. It's rewards, increases, and it was just, it didn't seem to have a consistency, anything. I think that's the reason now they just package it with guilds, is that it makes more sense. But it was one we just never really played. I had no interest. I don't think it's a bad one. We just never used it. Dark Ages, just, I was so excited. We just got into Dominion when it came out, because it came out in 2012. And we had really just gotten into gaming, and Dominion was one of my first loves. And so I was so excited. This is a new expansion. I'm going to go buy it. And we played Dark Ages by itself. And I'm going to say, if you do play Dark Ages, you should not play Dark Ages by itself. You should mix it with something like Prosperity, and then it probably plays really well. But it was the longest game of Dominion I've ever played, and it just felt so punishing. So we didn't enjoy it, and so when we moved and we were trying to cull down, that was one of the ones that went. But other than that, we own them all. And what I've done is I've just kind of went through, and although I have these in somewhat of an order, I wouldn't even call them an order. I do want to first talk, you'll notice I don't have any Dominion boxes here. All our Dominion are in these double deck boxes. If you've ever done any Magic, you know what these are. There's a lot of Dominion. As a volume reduction, we have combined all of ours into these. And what we've simply done is I have the card by, these are the sports card ones, and we just cut apart the dividers that came in. I know some of you are cringing. Cut apart the dividers that came on them, and then we just use that to label them, mainly because I have awful, awful handwriting and no one wants to read it. And then we just put them all in here in order. And then what I've got on the top of each of these boxes is I know what's in each. So we have all the Dominion expansions, plus the base cards and the upgrades and all the pieces in the 3 double deck boxes. And that was just, it was easier for us to get them out. And the reality is anytime we usually play, we almost always mix one of the base Intrigue or the base Dominion with one of the expansions. And so I was always having to pull 2 boxes anyways. So this just made it easier. And so for me, and then you can see I've got like the pieces, those are all in here as well. So everything I need is right here. Now if they come out with another Dominion expansion, I might have to go get another box. But anyways, for right now, they all fit in 3, minus the 2. So now first the 2 base ones. Now, if you're going to get into Dominion, you do need to buy one of the base ones, either base Dominion, the original one that came out in 2008, or Intrigue, which came out the following year. Of the 2, I would say the base is this is the market card. This is probably one of my favorite all-time cards. Both have a really good assortment of base cards that do all the base actions. So if you want to learn Dominion or a deck builder for the first time, you want one of those. I would say that the original Dominion is probably the one I would recommend you get, although Intrigue is still a good one. Intrigue, I think, can be a little bit meaner. We don't play with a lot of the mean cards because we play almost exclusively 2-player. And so it's not really fun to play but mean. No, you might enjoy all those. But I would say I prefer slightly the base one over Intrigue, but I think they're both really good ones, and I think you do need to own one or the other before you buy any of the expansions. And probably having both in the house is not a bad thing, but if you only want to invest in one, I don't think it's going to matter which one you invest in. Okay, I'm going to start at the bottom. I put these kind of in order, but really it depends on what mood I'm in, which one I want to play. The bottom I put Guilds. Guilds is a very small, and I've kind of got these sorted so I could pull some cards. Guilds is a very small expansion, and what it introduced was overplaying. And so this here is Stonemason. You probably can't really see it all that well, but so that's why I'm reading you the card here. They're all really generic looking cards and art. But they allowed you to pay extra. So this is a 2-coin card. It will cost you 2 coins to, but you can then pay more. And in this case, this says when you buy this, you may overpay for it. If you do, gain 2 action cards, each costing the amount you overpaid. So in other words, it lets you do something extra by overpaying. So it's kind of a cool little trick to do. But this was a very small little one. As I said, it now usually comes packaged with cornucopia. The next one is Hinterlands. And Hinterlands was a big one. And it introduced the win gain. And so I pulled the Duchess. Okay. And the Duchess says, in games when using this, when you gain a duchy, you may gain a Duchess. So you buy a duchy. Hey, you get a Duchess. Now, and the Duchess gives you +2 coins, and each player, including you, looks at the top card of their deck and discards it or puts it back. So it gives you both a perk and it gives everyone else a perk. The nice thing, a lot of further expansions have used that when you purchase it, you get something, and that's really neat. It's also, if you've played a lot of Dominion, you know a lot of people end up just focusing on buying the top ones, not the estate, the provinces, which are the big point ones. Well, this encourages you to buy duchies. That's kind of neat because a lot of times in a game when you're used to, oh, I'm always going to focus on this, it gives you a reason to buy something else. That's really kind of cool, and I like that aspect of it. Another thing that I like, and a lot of expansions, not just this one has it, are these. This is a victory/something else card. And this is the tunnel. But I love that because I almost consistently lose this game, I can tell you. The reason is I get distracted buying pretty cards. Love buying pretty cards. But buying victory point cards is boring, as is buying money. But that's how you win the game. And so I usually get distracted. So I love cards like this because they let me buy pretty fun cards. But at the same time, I'm collecting other things. Or this, the Duchess, I enjoy that because, ooh, I can buy a duchy and then I get a cool card. So anyways, it's just something I particularly enjoy. So it works well for me. Then prosperity. So prosperity is all about big money. So in the base game, there's 3 levels. There's the 1, the 3, there's the 1, 2, and 3. There's copper, silver, and gold. This enters platinum, and it enters colonies, which are above the provinces, which are now 11. And so this all focuses on making more money, bigger money cards. And so that's kind of, and mixed with the right one, it's a really good expansion. As I said, I think that if we would have played Dark Age mixed with this, it might have worked better. Now, the next one I want to talk about is Empires. And Empires, and I'm remembering where I stuck Empires here. Oh, right here. Introduces debt. And there's a different symbol. In all the other cards, there's a little round gold circle that says how many coins. This has a red little, looks like almost it's a hexagon. Thought for a minute it was a stop sign, but no, it's a hexagon. And it's a debt token. And pretty much you can go into debt to buy certain cards that are more expensive. So like this is 8 debt. And then you can either pay it off immediately if you have the coins. You can always at the end of your turn pay off as much debt, or you can keep the debt. So it allows that new way of kind of, again, that same overbuying that was in the earlier in guilds, but it allows you this debt idea. The debt, of course, will be negative points at the end if you don't pay it off. But it's usually pretty easy to keep it paid off. You don't usually go in that, but it allows you sometimes to build up cards and get more powerful cards early on. So it's kind of a new little trick for that one. Then Adventures, and Adventures is over here. Adventures added reserve cards, and they were a different color. So this is something that we hadn't seen before that gave you this tavern mat. And these mats have appeared in other ones. We talk about Seaside here in a minute. We'll talk more about mats. But it allowed you to set something aside on this mat for next turn. It was similar to, we'll talk again about duration cards as well. But this really allowed you to do some planning. And I do like all these different planning cards. So Adventures was really neat. Now the next one is Alchemy. And Alchemy is something that most people didn't like. And for me, I'm going to admit it's straight nostalgia. This was probably the first expansion we bought. And it's because it added a new commodity, and it added a potion. And certain cards required a potion to buy. And they were kind of like magic type cards. The issue though is it's really hard to mix because, and it was a small expansion. This probably will tell me how many are in it. Yeah, only 12 kingdom cards. It was a really small expansion, which meant, and they never used it again. So there's only a limited use of your potion cards. So if you mix with another one, there may be, say, only 2 or 3 cards that require the potions, and they're never in your hand when you want them unless you buy a lot of them, which then kind of always puts you at a disadvantage. So I think it was something they tried and then didn't work. I'd love to see it come back because, as I said, I really enjoyed it. But I think it was also because it was one of the first expansions we bought, and I really got into it, and I enjoyed doing that. And we played a lot of it with mostly alchemy cards. And I think if you're going to play alchemy, that's one where you do need to play it almost exclusively alone with maybe 1 or 2 cards from one of the bases, because otherwise the potions get too diluted and they don't work. I've seen other ones where they introduce like a certain wild currency or something, and if they get diluted, it doesn't work. And I think that's what happened with this one, because it never reappeared as needing it as a currency in a later expansion. Now the next one on my list is Seaside, and Seaside is one of my favorite expansions. And Seaside added the duration cards. And I love duration cards, and they've showed up in a lot of later cards. And what they are is you get something on your turn, they're these orange cards, and then you get something on your next turn. And I love that. I love that I get something now and I get something later. This is the Wharf, and so it says now at the start of your next turn, plus 2 cards, and plus 1 buy. And most of these cards were similar. They gave you a card and something else, and they not only gave it to you this turn, but next turn. And they all had this duration across the bottom, so the orange, so you knew, okay, keep this in front of you. You're going to use it again next turn. The other cool thing they did is they had these 3 mats. There was actually 3 mats. There was the pirate ship, the island, and this, like, you know, there was all these different ones. And they allowed you to do different things. They allowed you, like, for instance, to reserve cards to the side. You could pretty much put them out. What they did is you put your card there. You still got to count the points at the end, but you have to keep them in your hand. So, like, you buy that province card. You can get that province card over there. Oh, cool. Now I don't have to keep it in my hand, clouding up my hand, but yet I still got it for the end of the game. So there was some really neat ideas of how to call your deck without calling it. Because one of the things you'll find, and I'm notorious for this, is I get going on a game and I realize that, oh, I just got all these coppers or something, now I can't get rid of them. This is a way to get rid of stuff and you're not losing anything. So that was really kind of cool in itself. Then Renaissance. And so Renaissance, and again I have to figure out where I put it in here, they introduced more. They introduced these, let's see here, these coffers and projects. And so the coffers, these are just, again, things. They allow you to put stuff on here that then you can use in the things. So like coffers, during your buy phase, before you buy anything, you may remove tokens for this for +1 coin. So you got to put coins on here, tokens that were coins, and then you could use them anytime in the future. Which, as you know, if you've played a little bit of Dominion, you know that a lot of times you can kind of get stuck because, oh, I'm at 7, I really want to buy that province for 8. Well, this allowed you to kind of keep that 8th coin always the side. The other thing it introduced was projects. And projects and artifacts, projects were something that once you paid for, so in this case, $5 for this, the Piazza, at the start of your turn, reveal the top action card of your deck. If it's an action, play it. So this, once you paid for it, and everyone on the table could do it, you get to do this every turn. And it gave you kind of a special power, and everyone had the opportunity to buy it, and then it was always available for you. Menagerie. Now, I really liked Menagerie. Menagerie introduced all these really cool cards that were not in the supply. And we've seen this before in some of the other ones they've kind of mixed in, where this is a horse. You would get it with a certain card. It says +2 cards, +1 action, and then return it to its pile. And it's not a supply. You can't buy this card. No, it has a monetary value because there's certain cards that require that. But the idea being is that you would get it with a certain card. And then you put them in your pile, and when they come up, you got to use them. They go back. You can get them again. But there are all these cards that are out of your deck that you're bringing back in, and I really enjoyed that. I felt like I got a lot of really cool stuff, and I liked all the animals. I liked the theme. I thought it worked well. And so, oh, and the exile mat. So these also here, this was, when you gain a card, you may discard it here, and may discard it and all their copies of it from here. So you could put cards here, and then when you gain it, you got them all back. It was just a way, again, to move cards around out of your hand. And this one also had ways, they had a couple different things along as similar to the projects that we saw in Renaissance. Okay, and then my top one I put was Nocturne. Again, really, I would say these top four are all, if you were gonna buy a base expansion to start, like I've got the base, one or the other, and I want the next one. One of my top four, Nocturne, Menagerie, Renaissance, or Seaside, would all be excellent starting ones for you to purchase. But Nocturne, Nocturne, which was really cool about Nocturne, is they introduced boons and hexes. And these are the boons, but also have the hexes, which obviously do bad stuff. Boons do good stuff. The idea being is though that there are cards that let you get a boon that would give you something really cool. Like this one says, gain a silver. Oh, cool. This one says, +1 action, +1 coin. Keep this until cleanup. So they gave you something really cool to do. The other thing that Nocturne did really neat is heirlooms. And so like this is the goat heirloom. And this isn't in the supply. And it says when you play this, what it is this replaces one of the coppers in your starting hand. And if you play, this is the pixie. There's certain cards that across the bottom will say heirloom goat. And this says heirloom goat, but it might say heirloom, lucky coin, whatever it is. And if you have this in the supply, then this starts in your hand. And it starts instead of one of your coppers. Normally, Dominion starts with 7 coppers and 3 estates. This replaces one of those 7 coppers. And you can see here, this says when you play this, you may trash a card from your hand. So this gives you a power as well as the copper, and it changes up that starting hand that's always been the same. And it still has the 1 value, but they're all slightly different. And I don't know, I love this. It's just a really cool little addition that I thought was a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed it. And this also had night cards in them, which added another phase. A lot of people didn't like that additional phase, that, okay, after you're done with buy, now you have night phase. But the cool thing about night phase is it lets you play as many cards as you want, not just the number of actions you had, so it kind of felt very free. Well, in any case, these are my favorite Dominion, and well, they're all my favorite, but I kind of tried to give you some order, give you some ideas if you're trying to decide what should be your first purchases or what new you should do. Hopefully this gave you some ideas of what's in each of these expansions. Thanks for watching.